Well, guys, it's been a long time coming. It's been over a year wait of getting this project started. Have to save up and buy all the parts needed to make these repairs necessary. We're going to start work on the 97 Lexus ES300. A lot of the stuff you're going to see in these next videos can be typical of a lot of Toyota engines with a V6 or with a 4-cylinder on suspension. So like everyone knows, Lexus and Toyota shares all the same type of stuff. So it's going to be very similar. So these videos can be used to help you repair other videos like Toyota Camry and those type of vehicles from Toyota. So very similar. We'll get into it. What we have here, I have fully loaded strut assemblies from FCS. FCS makes a very good shock absorber, and so that's why I went with these. I got the complete loaded struts because all the other materials that come with it, you have all your mounts. These are for the rear, of course, but it has all the mounts. Everything's already preloaded, so it's actually cheaper to go this route than to buy everything separately, especially for the front struts. There's a little bit more involved to it, because you can, you turn the wheel and whatnot. So it comes with absolutely everything. The only bad thing about loaded struts are, and I'm sure everybody does know, is the coil springs they come with tend to make your car sit up much higher. That's not what I want, and so originally what I wanted to do is lower the vehicle so it doesn't so it's not so tall. It's a little bit more to the ground, but it looks nice. So I got the 10 springs that we're going to put on this, and these should lower the vehicle about 1.5 inches on all 4 corners. So we'll be doing that as well. Hopefully that turns out really well. I got the complete suspension kit, rebuild kit. It's got the links for the back suspension and everything for the front. So we'll be doing that as well. We'll be replacing all the pipes, for the cooling pipes in the car. So I didn't cheap out. These are Continental pipes. I got AC Delco for the coolant bypass pipe. We do PCV filter, the grommet that goes with it, Denso fuel pump, because there's nothing better, new spark plugs, NGKs, new ignition wires for United. I heard really good things about United. They're American, out of Ohio, so these should do really well. A fuel filter we're going to be doing, and new ignition coils. We're going to be doing all those 3. We have all the gaskets we need: oil pan gasket, intake gaskets, and valve cover gaskets. So we have all that. And down here we have a new alternator we're going to put in. We got a water pump. All this stuff is from Toyota. Like I said, I didn't want to cheap out. Oil filter, of course we're going to do an oil change. Thermostat, all the seals, cam seals, crank seal, all the bearings and tensioners, the timing belts, Toyota, straight from them, and also all the drive belts, because it's an alternator belt or AC belt and power steering belt. So all that's going to go on this car. Today's video, we're going to start off by doing the rear suspension. I already have everything prepped up. We're going to be switching out the coil off the new struts, and then we're going to swap it on the car. I have everything kind of pre-prepped for us. Tires removed, cars on stands. We're going to have to get access to the back seat. So the back seat, the full back seat has to come out to access 3 bolts for the top of the struts. And we'll just start down here first, and we'll go from there. Alright, so first thing first, I'm going to use power tools on this because, it's just a YouTube video. I'm trying not to make it too long. So you can do this with regular hand tools. That'll work out just fine. The way I've always done it in the past. So shouldn't be an issue here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to loosen the sensor wire from the strut, and we're going to do the brake line, take that off from the strut first. Also, thing I wanted to note, right below here I have a jack right underneath the whole assembly. It's not on the rotor, it's where all the suspension pieces, I guess the knuckle meets down here below. So it's just gently on there. We're going to need that since we drop the strut down. We use it for adjustment to make sure everything's lined up when we put the two bolts down here at the bottom. So there's two big ones down here. If I remember correctly, I believe they're 21 millimeter. Two of them down here. But next we're going to take off this this link here off the sway bar. We're going to get that loose real quick and take it off since we're replacing that with a new one. Of course, there's this one on top and there's one down at the bottom. Got jammed up. Let me get a hammer. That one goes. So at this point what we're going to do is we're going to go down here on the side. I'm going to try to position the camera over here. We're going to see the two bolts and we'll take those off. It shouldn't be necessary to remove the caliper off of this. Just so you know, you should be able to do this and access these bolts without having to interfere with those. Okay, so I set up the camera down here to show you the two bolts we're going to remove. They're actually 20 millimeter. I went ahead and removed the caliper off the rotor just so I can film it and see what we're working on here. So I'm going to remove these two with a power tool. You can use regular tools for this, but it'll just be a little bit more difficult to do it that way on camera, especially the speed I'm going to go at doing this repair. So remove those two. One. So you're going to reuse these bolts, so don't lose them. Next one here. You may have to convince these to come out. Not all the time. Usually I get it halfway like there, and I'll just get an extension real quick with a hammer and knock it out. See if this one fits. Yeah. See if this one should fit. There we go. So I'm just going to try to knock this bolt out. Put the bolts here, and there goes my gun. There we go. Alright. So I'm going to push the polymer out here. It's somewhat out of the way. There we go. There's the next one. So we're done down here for now. Now we're going to go inside the car and remove the two nuts that are holding out the strut into the body. And so I'll meet you up there. Okay. So the bolts in here, like I said, you're going to have to take off the rear seat, which I've done already. And we'll just leave that back. The bolts, once I get in here, are behind this sound cover. And move the seat belt around this way, pull it back. And so what I use for these tight spots, hopefully the camera's adjusting, there we go, I'm gonna use these pass-through wrench. It's a 12 millimeter. You can use a regular wrench. I prefer to use this one just because it has a long reach. This one down here, I would say, yeah, you can use a deep socket, but it might be a little bit difficult to get to this back one. So remove these down slowly. I'm going to save these nuts as well. These nuts seem to be a better quality than the ones that are coming into the strut kit. So if I can do them by hand now. There we go. Last bolt's always going to be tighter as it's kind of pulling down from the bottom side a slight bit. Let's switch hands here. Alright. Oh yeah, that's bottomed out. Just gotta keep on ratcheting it off. I guess it makes it fun to hold the camera and wrench at the same time. But we're getting there. We gotta be close, right? Oh my gosh. There she goes. And I lost the nut somewhere. Anyway, we'll go back outside and pull that strut out. Alright, so we're going to pull the old strut down and out. Get here the wheel knuckle and kind of pull it a little bit just to loosen up the strut. And once it's loose, what you want to do is slide it to the side. Be careful, it's a little bit, it's got some weight to it. And make sure I do this without scraping up too much stuff. And we remove it right out. We're going to leave everything the way everything is here. And we'll go over to the bench. We'll get the new struts. And we'll disassemble them and put the new 10 coils on. And then we'll come back here and pop everything back together. Alright, so the first thing you're going to need is a good coil compressor. It's always best to have the big large one, hydraulic, but I don't have room in my garage for one of those, and I don't do enough of these coils to actually warrant actually buying one. So you can always buy one like this. Here's the brand on this one. The way I select these is to make sure there's a safety function on it. And these do have locking pins. So if you're going to buy a set like this, make sure they do have these locking pins. That's for your safety, okay? So I always suggest to get ones with locking pins like this. Move these aside. So, and get the new strut assembly up here, so we got to remove this coil. And so by doing that, we're going to try to situate this compressor on these coils. Of course, one on each side, lock them into place first. And then I'm going to start by hand, just get them hand tight. Of course, you always want this assembly to be away from you. I know these rear struts are not that wound tight when they're fully expanded like this, so these are pretty safe to work on compared to other cars. So always watch out for that if you happen to be working on something else besides a Toyota. I'll lock these into place, safety first. Oh, lock. There we go. Okay. So first thing first, let me get the impact. So hopefully it doesn't shake up the camera too much. I'm going to tie these down slowly. I'm going to slowly work them side to side. I'm not going to go crazy. Okay, let me see. Then you can kind of test it and see if it's loosened up enough. Looks like we need a little bit more on this side. And it looks like we got enough there. So I'll move this aside real quick so you can tell. There we go, it just falls off. So that's what you want. Take all the stress right off of that. Next is removing the center bolt. On this car, it's a 22 millimeter. So remove this here. That was completely my fault. I forgot I had it the wrong direction, so oops. I'll do that again. So just keep in mind these do have a spacer and then your nut. Move this apart. It's all one piece here. Move this guy off. Everything else stays the same. Get the 10 spring. So the only thing that's there's two things important to reconstructing these. Let me get this on camera. These are angled in a certain way, almost like an arrow. What this arrow means is this arrow part, the top part, needs to point directly down the shaft and center up to where the knuckle is going to join the car. So just remember this arrow, just straight on, down in the, try to aim toward the middle here. The other thing is this first coil that goes on, make sure, let me see if I can show you. So this part here, you got to make sure this part gets right into this gap here. So you can kind of see the gap, how this goes on. So if you wanted to, you can kind of see that this guy fits right on there. You slide it in and twist it to that spot. About there. So that's very important, because if we get it somewhere else, your height is going to be much different. So you got to make sure it locks in place right there. And then we put this mount / boot back on. If I'm not mistaken, since this spring is a little bit shorter, I'm thinking we might be able to muster this by hand. Maybe. Let me see. I know I'm out of view, and I'm going to press this and put the spacer and the nut on top. I'm able to compress this by hand. Maybe I can move the camera up slightly. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. Okay, I guess that's kind of good enough. So I'm gonna do is you see me just pushing it by hand. The front struts may be different, might not be so easy, but I know the rear ones are easy like this. So it's all a matter of making sure I line up the boot to face this thing here where the knuckle meets. Very important. We're going to be doing this again. It's got a slight taper to where it mounts to the car. So, yeah, it looks like I'm able to muscle my way. I'm compressing the spring myself. All right. So now it's just to tighten up the holding nut. While holding it together, you want to hold this, make sure that this doesn't really twist. There we go. Now she's ready to go in the car. And so I'll meet you over there. Okay, we're going to get the strut back on here, the new one, the Tein spring. It's the same as the installation is the same as it's reversed from, you know, taking everything apart. So we want to get this top piece first into somewhat the hole where the holes mount to the body on top first. Kind of wrap it around like that. Move my jack aside for a second. See if I can position myself. If I can find the holes on top, it's great right now. Okay, so got the strut lined up in here. I lined it up with the holes here on top, and of course we have the jack here in the bottom. That's going to help us raise this up a little bit, put pressure on the strut, so we can line it up with the knuckle down, the wheel knuckle down here. So we got to line that up first, and so we lined that up. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up top real quick, and I'm going to put a nut on the strut so it keeps it in place, because I'm going to lower the jack a little bit, and that's going to give us the play to get those two 20 millimeter bolts into the strut. Okay, so we got that held up. I'm going to lower down the suspension, keeping an eye on the bolt locations in the back. And you kind of slowly put it down until you think you got it lined up. Give it a try. And it looks like we got it in the first try, so it'll be loose like this. We got one bolt in. You get the second, the bottom one. The top one's always easier to put in first. And the back one, or the bottom one, sorry, you put that one in. Then we're going to get these guys tightened up real quick. I gotta kind of speed it up. I'm losing a little bit of daylight here, and I just want to make sure I get this all done. All right, and get the impact. We tie this thing up tight. bar link on. This one might be a little bit difficult to get on, because the suspension is tweaked, and so it might be actually easier to raise both sides of the car by pulling this on, and that might be the case. You can see how high it's sticking up here, so I'm gonna have to jack up the other side of the car to kind of counterbalance the sway bar. Of course, there's other ways of doing it, but that's the easiest way, just to take the pressure off. So I'll leave that there for now. And what I'll do is I'll button up all the accessories, the sensor wire and the brake line real quick. This one's for the brake line. And then the sensor line. I'm actually curious to see if we lower the jack real quick on this side, see if it gives us enough room to fit that sway link. Doesn't look like it's going to. I'll get this out of the way. We don't need that. I'll get that caliper on off camera for us. I'm going to go to the other side real quick and see if I can jack up that side of the car. Hopefully it's going to give us that space we need to put our link on. So. She's a stubborn one. There we go. Oh, what size is that? Come on. Alright. So the new ones are 17 millimeter. Bigger, better? I don't know. Alright, so we got it down here. To give the car a little bounce. So it'll settle down the suspension just a little bit here. Alright. That doesn't look too bad. It close up that gap. We don't have a, what I call a giant stink bug of a rear end. If I break out with the measuring tape here from the ground up to the top of fender, we got 26¼ inches. So of course I didn't measure what it was before, but I have to guess it was around 28. So it's a pretty good drop. It looks pretty good. It looks sportier, cleaner than it was before. So I mean, I can fit fingers through here. It's not too bad. So I guess that's it for this episode. Stay tuned to the next episodes. We got a lot of work to do on this car, so I'm going to try to crank these episodes out and all the repairs we're going to be doing. I'm not totally sure what we're going to do next. I'm thinking the fuel pump since we're here in the back, but we'll see till the next one. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.